Hello, I'm Madeline, and today I'm going to be doing The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. So, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn was written by Mark Twain in 1884 and follows the life of Huckleberry Finn in the 1830s-ish. So, the story starts when Huckleberry Finn goes to live with Widow Douglas and Miss Watson, and they try to civilize him. And at first, he kind of hates it, but then he kind of grows to not hate the more easy style of life. But then he's kidnapped by his dad, who's a drunk and abusive. And this is where the story begins. So to start, he then fakes his own death in order to escape. And after he fakes his death, he meets Jim, the runaway slave, who belonged to Miss Watson, who he used to live with. So he already knew. And together, it begins. They together ride on a raft down the Mississippi. And every time they go to shore, they always get involved, or at least Huck does, Huckleberry, because Jim doesn't really get out, because obviously, runaway slave, he can't go and meet people. Huck always gets involved with whatever is happening. So along their journey, Huckleberry gets involved in robberies, a feuding family, and then at last they meet a pair of con artists who join them on their journey. And these men, once they go to a town and they trick a family into believing they are the brothers of a recently deceased man who was very rich. They con the whole town, and then Huck starts to feel guilty about it. So he rats them out to someone, to one of the dead guy's daughter. And then before she's able to reveal it, two other men come who also claim they're the deceased guy brothers. And then a whole thing happens and they have to escape town. And the next town they come to, the con artist ends up selling Jim without Huck knowing, because they didn't get any money from the last town. And then with Jim being sold, Huck goes through it. This whole time he's been feeling guilty. He's harboring a runaway slave. He helped the slave escape. Miss Watson was only nice to him. And yeah. But then he finds out Jim is his friend, and he feels guilty enough both ways. So he goes on a journey to help Jim escape. And then eventually Jim is a freed man, and Huck goes west to explore on his own. So that was kind of a long story. Anyway, the book is obviously a chapter book. It doesn't have any pictures except one little thing on each chapter. But first, the cover of the book is just a picture of, oh, can you see it? Mark Twain, the author. Very simple. And also, I had a copy of this book, but my floors in my house are being redone, and all our books in our house are in boxes in the garage, and I'm not looking for that. So I found a PDF online, thankfully. Yeah, so very simple, just the name of the book and a picture of Mark Twain. And then at the beginning of each chapter, there's a little simple picture, which I don't exactly know what it is. It looks like Huckleberry Finn right there in the middle, and then Jim maybe right there, and then they're kind of like in a field in the plains. I don't really know. It's kind of hard to tell, but it looks like one of those like stamps where they like etch out the blank space and then it's a stamp. I don't know. It's very simple. That's the same picture at the beginning of each chapter, like right under chapter 1. And then there's also a picture at the beginning, so it's like the inside cover of the book, I guess. And there's a little picture of Huckleberry Finn, who's Tom Sawyer's companion, which I did not realize they were part of the same universe. I knew it was the same author, but I didn't realize they were friends and did stuff together. It's like Tom Sawyer's in this book and helps Jim escape in the end. Anyway, yeah, he's holding his oar for his raft, looking very adorable. And yeah, so the genre of this book is fiction. The events didn't really happen. But it could. I think it's very plausible. It's realistic. It could happen. And I do think it's also historical fiction, since it is based, at least now it is. I don't know if it would have been considered when it was first published, but this story itself is dated for like the 1830s-ish, and then it wasn't published till 1884, so like 50 years before that. So I think historical fiction. And then a passage I really liked, and is kind of silly, is page 291. Let me find it. So in this page, so after they think that our Tom Sawyer, the friend, got shot when they were trying to help Jim escape, he wakes up and finds out Jim didn't escape, that he got captured again. And then this is the Aunt Sally talking to Tom Sawyer. So it goes. "What does this child mean?" said Aunt Sally. "I mean every word I say, Aunt Sally. And if someone don't go, I'll go. I've known him all my life, and so has Tom here. Old Miss Watson died 2 months ago, and she was ashamed she was ever going to sell him down the river. Anne said so, and she set him free in her will." So basically, Tom Sawyer came to town, and Huckleberry Finn was like, "We need to save Jim, da-da-da-da." And he's like, "Okay." So Tom Sawyer helps Huck create this whole adventure, like more than necessary. They have to give Jim pins so he can mark down how many days he's been there. He has to give him frogs and spiders and snakes so Jim has company in his little cell, which is just like a little shed house. It's not really a cell, but he's locked in there. We have to do this and this and this to make it a grand adventure, which is really not necessary. And Tom Sawyer gets shot in the process because it was very risky and it just wasn't necessary at all. And in the end, it gets revealed Jim was already a free slave. His owner, whatever, had set him free. And Tom Sawyer knew this all along. But because Huckleberry didn't know that and no one else knew that, Tom Sawyer saw it as an opportunity to have an adventure. So I think this paragraph's just, or this whole little section is just really funny. Because Tom Sawyer is the teenager who's a little crazy, not crazy, just is full of adventure. Like in the beginning of this book, he started a gang for robbers of all 14 and under kids. It didn't last, but yeah. And it's just funny. And it was shocking when that was revealed. And then I think some of the strengths of this book is how realistic the story is. Like the entire thing, it very well I feel could have happened, and all the dialogue I feel is actually how dialogue sounds, and it sounds like it's very realistic. I don't know. And then also like Huckleberry Finn's inner thoughts I feel are very realistic too. Like he's very troublesome and witty and kind of snarky, and it's just, I feel like it's very accurate for a 14-year-old boy even now, even though it was written 100 years ago, more than that, 150 years ago, more than that. Anyway, it's teenage boy, it's funny. And then the weakness for me, at least, is their dialogue sometimes doesn't say Huck says this or Tom says this. It just is the dialogue. And dialogue will go on for like a page or two, and I'll be reading it and I have no idea who's talking. I get so confused. So an example of that I'll show you is page 99. So like right here, like it will say I says at the very beginning, and then it says I says, "It's me." "Who's me?" "George Jackson." "What do you want?" "I don't want nothing, sir. I only want to go along, but the dogs won't let me." "What are you prowling around for this time of night for?" "Hey, I wasn't prowling around, sir. I fell overboard." Like it just, I don't know if you can see it. It goes on, and it doesn't say he said this, George said this, and I get confused. I don't know if that's a me problem, but. And then also some of the parts of the book when Huck is having his like inner dialogue, his inner thoughts, I also like, I'll read 3 pages of it because it goes on for a while. And I have no idea what I just read. Like I'll read a whole 3 pages and have no idea. I didn't comprehend any of it. And again, that might be a me problem, but I did talk to a couple other people and they agreed that this also happened to them. So I don't think it's just a me problem, unless everyone I talk to is also a little silly. And yeah. And this book is definitely should be for high school children, or students, I guess, not children. The reading level itself isn't that hard or complicated, or even college students. But the maturity in this book, or needed to read this book, I think is higher because of the racist themes and all of that. And it does say like the N-word, and they talk about slavery and all that. And for middle schoolers, they could read the book, but I don't think a lot of them will understand it. Not understand it, like, just take it seriously enough to read it, and yeah. And then also, I can't fully decide if I enjoyed this book or not. Like, I enjoyed the story itself, and I liked the adventure and all the craziness that happens. But again, I read a lot of it, and I would have to reread it because I didn't comprehend it. And like, I read a lot of books, so I know how to comprehend a book. And I don't know. But yeah. And then a class activity for this book I think would be fun would if the students made like a picture or a map that represents the journey along the river, the Mississippi River, that Huck and Jim did. So starting at wherever the town that they lived in, and then going down the river, and yes, having little stops along the way of each town they got involved with, and like a little summary of what happened, how long they stayed there, and how long the journey itself was for, because I don't know how long that was. I didn't pay attention to that. So it took them this many days to get from this town to this town to this town, and who was involved and what happened. And I think high school would be good for that because they could pay attention to all the details of the story and make it accurate. And it's not like a big writing project that students have to do that you would assume they'd have to do after you read a book, which they'll probably also have to do. But the map is fun, and I think it's easy enough and simple enough. But it's a great way to visualize the story, and it's what, 200 and something, almost basically 300 pages long. 295, so yeah, 300 pages basically. And it's can visualize the book and see it was a 300-page book, but this book only took place over like a week, which not really. It took way longer than a week, but yeah. And that is all I have for you. Thank you.